Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast.
So we did put out a poll, actually, on our Instagram page. Have you thought about retirement yet?
So I've been thinking quite a lot, where is the best place? Because it has to be a place I want to spend my days enjoying myself, doing the things I like. And I'm thinking about greenery, large spaces, places to run around.
Yeah, Ryan. I know what you're thinking. It starts with an A and ends with an A. And you've lived there before.
Austria?
Oh, yes, a popular place to retire. So we did ask folks around us where they would like to retire. So here's a listen.
I hope to be able to retire outside of the city centre. A place where it is a little bit more laid back and quieter. Some places in Malaysia or in Thailand would be great.
Okay, Malaysia, Thailand. I have
options.
heard Thailand before because the cost of living there is lower. So if
Yes.
you're able to spend the rest of your days there, it's idyllic. You know, you have
I wouldn't mind
beachfronts. Yeah, that sounds
I've
nice.
spent a month in Thailand. Low cost of living, friendly people, greenery, no tall buildings. Yeah, great environment to retire in.
Yeah. Another popular choice I've heard is also Indonesia, Bali. Who doesn't want to retire in Bali?
Yeah. I suppose the catch is, you also want to retire around your friends, your family
That's
as
true.
well.
Yeah.
And I think this is where there is a good point to stay in Singapore to retire.
I guess I don't mind retiring in Singapore because you can just walk everywhere. I think that's something that's very important. And also, I'm guessing at least one of my kids will be staying here.
I want to retire in Singapore because that's where my roots are and my family's friends are.
I hope to retire here in Singapore because this is the most exciting place to be in. But the caveat is you have to be rich enough, right, to retire here in Singapore. And it's so exciting. Just imagine, right, all the concerts that are coming here to Singapore and you're not working. So isn't that a good place to be in?
Yeah, the concert. So Singapore is actually a pretty fun, right?
Stuff is going on.
If GST comes down to 5%, sure, I think we'll all be on board.
Whoa. Different conversation for a different day, but we did put out a poll of where people want to retire on our social media. So this is the results from our Instagram page.
Drum roll, please.
Yes. 31% say they want to stay right here in Singapore.
Okay.
So a third, not too bad. Malaysia coming in at 22%. Pretty high, actually.
Pretty high.
Europe, for some reason, 15%. 15%.
Yeah,
Not
insignificant.
insignificant. And elsewhere, so we also broaden it out
Gosh.
to
Yes.
the rest, it's 31%.
So I'm reading this and thinking 7 in 10 folks want to retire outside of Singapore.
That's true. I did vote and I did put elsewhere only because I feel like it wouldn't surprise me if my husband wants to retire in a farm somewhere one day.
Okay, my guess for the 31% elsewhere, I think half of it is Australia and New Zealand.
It's a good guess.
Yeah.
I would go for Japan because you've got a mix of stuff. Nice, quiet countryside, and then you've got a city as well.
But big language barrier there.
Yeah, that's a catch. I've
Yeah.
got to brush up my Japanese.
Yes.
Yes, so we want to dive into this very important topic of retirement today. What does it mean to retire well? Do you think that Singapore is doing a good job in making sure that we all age with dignity and with care?
Morning Shot.
Welcome to Morning Shot. I'm Audrey Seek. It's often said that age is just a number, but in Singapore's case, that number is rising pretty fast. By 2030, 1 in 4 citizens will be aged 65 and older. That's not just a statistic, it's a whole shift in how we live, how we work, and grow old together as a society. Retirement today isn't just about having enough money, it's about accessible health care, safe public spaces, vibrant communities, and meaningful ways to stay connected. With people living longer and retirement ages being pushed back, the question now is, what does it really mean to retire well in Singapore? And is the city a livable place to grow old, ready to support its growing aging population, not just with dollars and cents, but with dignity, purpose, and care? Joining us today are 2 guests we are happy to have on. First, Lim Eileen, Associate Foreign Editor at The Straits Times. Good morning, Eileen. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And joining us also is Dr. Kelvin Tan, President of the Society for Gerontechnology, Head of Program in Applied Aging Studies, and Senior Lecturer in Singapore University of Social Sciences. Dr. Tan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Well, a pretty heavy topic this morning. Singapore is aging quickly, so we love your take on the overall situation to start. When we talk about quote-unquote retiring well, what do you think Singaporeans today are really looking for? And are we actually close to achieving this? Let's start with you, Dr. Tan.
Well, Singapore recently has been ranked the third happiest country in the world after Zurich and Copenhagen. Not many people know about it. And we also achieved the accolade of a blue zone location around the world. And these are very good credentials. But on the ground, are we coping? Are we happy with what we are? Are we, able to aspire towards a very meaningful aging as well as retirement journey? I think there's a lot that we still should be doing, because you mentioned earlier that the stat shows that we are approaching the super aging country rank, right, which is 20% of our population over 65 years old. How to retire happily and meaningfully? We need to look at many aspects: making friends around, having an environment that is conducive to the kind of lifestyle we aspire to, greenery or less stressful lifestyle, etc. So there is still a lot for us to achieve compared with Japan and Korea, who are ranked number 1 and 2 in Super Aging League.
Yeah, so Eileen, you recently wrote an op-ed for the Straits Times on whether Singapore could become a retirement haven. What sparked that piece for you, and how did readers respond to that?
Well, interestingly, I was in Phuket and talking to a Swiss lady who was in her 60s, and she was saying how she was traveling around the region looking for a place in Southeast Asia to retire. And, I assumed, because we were sitting there at the beach, sipping our fresh coconut water, enjoying the breeze, I assumed that Thailand and Malaysia would be top of her list, as it is with most people. But she actually surprised me by saying that she wasn't that interested in Thailand or Malaysia. She didn't feel very connected, and that she was looking forward to settling in Singapore.
Oh.
If she was able to. Obviously, Singapore does not offer the kind of retirement visas that most of these other countries do. But because she had lived here before, this was where she felt that, she would be happiest. So I thought that would be a good starting point to look beyond the usual complaints that we hear about Singapore, that is costly,
yes,
that is crowded, that is boring, and to actually look at what are the plus points, because I think we take a lot of this for granted.
Yeah, so when we say a place is a quote-unquote retirement haven, what does that really mean in practical terms? How does Singapore stack up in terms of very important things: healthcare, safety, accessibility, overall quality of life? Eileen, let's start with you.
Yeah, so in my article, I focused on pavements, toilets, and laws. Obviously, these are very specific issues, but they are meant to illustrate the wider picture, which is that Singapore is relatively a lot more developed compared to countries like Thailand and Malaysia. So very, very simple things. For example, when my parents came to visit me in Singapore, I'm Malaysian, so they're from Malaysia, and they remarked how there were handrails and wheelchair ramps.
Okay.
So we tend to take those for granted. But actually, if you look at, especially public areas like the MRT and what have you, there are handrails, there is wheelchair accessibility. Other things that I think people should consider, it's very easy when you're holidaying somewhere, you have that tourist experience. But when you actually have to live in a country, that's when you get involved in local laws, local languages. You might be signing contracts you don't understand. You might suddenly realize there are more water cuts or power cuts than you expected. I would like to say these are all things that we take for granted in Singapore.
Yeah, that we don't think about. Do you have anything to add there, Dr. Tan?
Totally agree that Singapore has very good infrastructure in terms of age-friendly spaces for older persons. But on the other hand, I think it's also equally important as we evolve into a nation of more centenarians, and the longevity is the buzzword, because we stay healthier, better, we eat better, we exercise more. That means we might have more than just 3 generations, 4 generations, etc. And why I mention that is because the caregiving part of taking care of older person can be the responsibility of one sandwich class, for example.
Yeah.
And this is pretty stressful beyond the hardware and the infrastructure, because myself, I belong to a family of 5, right? So I've got a younger and elder sister, for example, and my mom is over 88 years old, and she is right now on wheelchair, for example. And we need to have a lot of planning to take care of an older person. And this is not going to be easy. This is beyond just the infrastructure. Government provide a lot of housing options, for example, assisted living, independent living, etc. So they reduce the stress of managing a bigger space within your home to do housekeeping. But the software aspect of it, which is the family helping each other, or the kampong spirit, I think that it's really important. The bottoms up, the kind of a community effort needs to be embedded, and that's very, very Singapore.
Yeah. So you talked about the sandwich generation, which I think we should also address here, Dr. Tan. This is the people supporting both elderly parents and young kids, being squeezed from both ends, not an easy place to be in. What kinds of support structures do they need most? And how should our policies evolve to help these people?
I feel that the whole concept of aging is actually not new, right? I mean, thinking about it, it's like we have always been taking care of older person in the family, but the change is we are becoming a beanpole-sized family structure. We have a lower fertility rate, people are living longer, and the responsibility of taking care of older person becomes quite a kind of different challenge that I think we need pretty deep thoughts into that, whether is it policy level or maybe also the support mechanism you can see, right? We rely a lot on foreign domestic helpers to come in and be complementing that kind of support for the family. But today, without them, how do we cope with it? Should we put in a more cohesive planned infrastructure in terms of technology so that we do booking, for example, right? To see a doctor, to do a rehab, or to apply for resources, etc. There's a lot of coordination that technology can help.
All right. So, of course, Eileen, we know that Singapore has its strengths, and we talked about that at length. But what are some of the real challenges retirees face here, especially when compared to moving abroad for, lower costs or maybe a different lifestyle? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you asked me earlier about the reader response, and I have to be frank, I did receive quite a lot of negative responses. Basically, people saying that I somehow had an agenda in writing this piece, which I do not. I have to state that here. But one interesting feedback I got from a reader was that he said, if we retire in Singapore, we'll be amongst grumpy people, and that will make us die faster.
Oh my gosh.
Which says a lot, I think. I was thinking, well, actually, I think you're the grumpy person. Having said that, if you are, in Thailand or Malaysia, I can see the positive there is that you think, well, it's cheaper for you to get help, right? And somehow these countries come across as having people who are a bit more friendly, maybe a bit more relaxed. Singapore, people are generally more stressed in Singapore because obviously it's a higher cost country. So people, I think, are drawn by that as a plus for these retirement havens.
Yeah. So, Dr. Tan, we talked about intergenerational support. How do current government policies encourage this? Where should the line be drawn between state responsibility and family duty? We talked about the kampong spirit, being key to Singapore, but where should the line be, you think?
It's quite difficult, frankly, to draw the line between top-down policy from government and bottoms-up initiatives from the community, because where's the handover and takeover point? I think it works both ways, that the government looks at the national level and even community level, what is required to band everyone together, right, to be friendly to each other, to build an inclusive society that is not ageist-based. Ageist, by the way, is not just older person being stereotyped as slow-moving, losing memory, and doddering around, for example, but also younger people that when older person look at younger persons, they can be ageist over the younger person, that they are always impatient, always running around, So this intergeneration gap could be one that requires both top and bottom up, as in when we look around with our neighbors, we try to be helpful to each other, and we know that, okay, 1 in 3 is going to be over 65. So let's look up for each other. If you're alone at home and nobody knocks on your door, or food are left outside, or deliveries, etc., something could be amiss. So knock on the door and be friendly and say hi to each other. At the government level, for example, in Japan, they have the Minister for Loneliness, right? So what is the Minister of Loneliness doing? It is to try and make a happier environment for everybody, in the sense that the overall population could look at ways that they feel less depressed, and improve their immunity systems through healthy programs and through getting along with each other more.
Yeah, so it's actually true. They say that loneliness kills, and it does. And it's really important to surround yourself with friends and family to prolong life, right? Well, before we let you both go, just for fun, wanted to ask, where would you like to retire someday? Eileen, I'm going to go with you first.
Very boring. So it's a choice between a little village in the countryside in Wales somewhere, maybe, or most likely Malaysia, because I'm still Malaysian.
Okay, and what about you, Dr. Tan?
Well, I'm born and bred in Singapore. It still will be Singapore. It's very boring, but I think if we were to make this place the blue zone that's not just engineered, we can definitely retire happily here in Singapore with friends and family.
Yeah, all right. Well, as Singapore gets older, the question isn't just how we retire, but how well. From meaningful policies to age-friendly design and everything in between, our conversation reminds us that the future of retirement is really about building a society that works at every age. Eileen, Dr. Tan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep it here on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.